What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here, and today I want to talk about the most hated storylines, events, or comics from Marvel Comics of all time. These are stories that are so horribly written or presented, they're disrespecting some of our favorite characters, they're just cash grabs. Whatever the case may be, these are the most hated. And I know that this can be subjective, this is just my list, but I did look at a number of posts, forums, rankings, etc., as well as just my own knowledge being in the comic book world for so long, to put together the top 5 most hated Marvel comics of all time. Starting with number 5, we have the Sins Past Spider-Man storyline. Now, this, for many, is the worst Peter Parker Spider-Man story of all time. And that is some stiff competition, okay? But this one is particularly bad because we're going ahead and retconning one of the most significant events in all of comic book history, not just Marvel Comics, not just Spider-Man comics, but all of comic book history, which was Gwen Stacy's death. Instead of just letting this tragic moment lie as is, we're going to go ahead and retcon that Gwen Stacy was cheating on Spider-Man with Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we going in this direction? To make it worse, that she was pregnant and had his children. Who is this for? Who is this for? Why are we doing this? Why ruin a good thing for no reason? And again, it's not like this is going to have a huge impact on anything. It's not like it's going anywhere. It's just ruining this story for no reason. And again, it's just a total blindside to Spider-Man readers and comic book fans in general. Like, why are we doing this? And a lot of people just have to memory hole this comic and say, oh, that never happened. Just forget about it. We're going to pretend it doesn't exist. Which is a testament to how big of a misstep this was for Spider-Man comics. Number 4 is going to be Civil War 2. Now, I want to get out of the way and say I bought Civil War 2 when it came out. I got all the individual issues. I had them signed by, I want to say it was Neil Adams who did a variant cover for it. I don't know. But I had those issues. I bought the trade, and I liked Civil War 2. I thought it was fine. I thought the art was really good. But I stand alone in that position. When it came out, everybody hated it. I was aware of that. Everybody hated it. No one was a real big fan of it. And even today, it stands as one of the most hated Marvel comics of all time. People do not like Civil War 2. And there's a number of reasons for that. One, it was obviously a cash grab to correspond with the Captain America Civil War movie. Without a doubt, the movie's coming out, the MCU is hot, every movie they put out is a huge hit. And so they want to, with the comics, put something out along with it. So that whenever you Google Civil War Marvel, you can see, oh, the Civil War 2 comic is coming out from Marvel Comics. So obviously that's what it was, just a cash grab to make money. But beyond that, a lot of people think that the comic itself wasn't even good. And look, you compare it to Civil War 1, the original Civil War, it is much worse. It has a worse moral dilemma, it has a worse cast of characters, the writing is worse, the art, that I like the art is worse than it was in Civil War 1. If you're comparing the two directly, it is very much a downgrade. It's like a shell of what Civil War was. And also in Civil War, you had the entire Marvel universe taking sides there, which a lot of people really liked and knows, what side are you on? What side are you on? But for this one, again, the cast was a lot smaller. There was a lot more people that you don't care about. And a lot of the Inhumans were there, which a lot of people don't care about the Inhumans. They really did pick whatever the opposite of a star-studded cast is. That's what this had. So we had Captain Marvel, super unpopular. Iron Man, super unpopular, and then the Inhumans, super unpopular. And that was the story's basis. And so a lot of people did not like the event as a concept, and even more did not like the event as an actual book. But real quick, I do want to mention that I am crowdfunding my 3rd graphic novel, Cardinal Starstruck, on Indiegogo. It's got great story, great art, it's action-packed. Please do follow the link in the description to check out the Indiegogo page. Look through all the information about the campaign and the book itself, and if it interests you, please do consider backing. I put a lot into this book. I think it's really great, and I think that you will really enjoy it as well. So again, please follow that link, and I appreciate any support. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, we have the Ultimatum storyline. Now, this takes place in the Ultimate universe and is largely an X-Men storyline. It involves the Avengers as well, but it's largely an X-Men storyline where Magneto's going crazy after his child dies, and it's very bleak and it's very brutal, and that's a lot of reasons why people don't like it. It's so dark, but not even in like a fun dark way, or like with like a meaningful story or point or theme to it. It's just very brutal and bleak for like no reason, and a lot of it didn't make any sense. And again, the deaths of like our favorite characters dying, a lot of the deaths were kind of stupid, and it makes sense. It's like it's these very powerful superheroes like drowning and stuff like that, or being suffocated. Not really like a valiant death for a superhero. It was more like a snuff comic, and a lot of people did not like that, especially people like Wasp being cannibalized by Blob, and then Blob being cannibalized by Ant-Man. Like, a lot of it was just kind of like, what am I reading? This is just weird and pretty crass, pretty edgy. Definitely not the tone you're expecting from a Marvel comic. And for that reason, a lot of people look down on this book. Nobody really holds it in high regard. A lot of people distance themselves, being like, that was just weird. Or it's outright hated as like, that was a terrible story that should have never happened. And speaking of terrible stories that should have never happened, we've got number 2, the Clone Saga, another Spider-Man saga. The Clone Saga is one of these things that is sort of infamous in Marvel Comics, where it was this event by the name, right, where this sort of Spider-Verse idea spawned of all these different clones, variants, everything of Spider-Man showing up, and the idea that Spider-Man Peter Parker has been a clone for quite some time, and that he will be replaced as Spider-Man by Ben Reilly. There's a lot going on, and it was very complicated and weird, which is another reason people didn't like it. But the main thing people don't like it, because it was actually popular whenever it first came out. People liked it. It sold. But it way overstayed its welcome, way too long. And it became very, and the longer it went on, the more complicated it got, which made it more unfun and convoluted. And it represented something larger of like the weird over interconnectivity of the 90s comics, where it was just way too much to keep up with. Like, you have to buy like 12 comics a month just to understand this one story that's going on, which is too much to keep up with. People don't like that, and so they'll just, okay, it's not worth it. They'll just put their comic down, they'll read something else. It's never a good sign whenever the book that's supposed to be a fun escape becomes a burden to try and read and keep up with, and that's kind of what happened. Not to mention that, again, as it went on, the story just got stupider and stupider, and even the concept is kind of stupid. Replacing Peter Parker with a clone is stupid. They added a lot of new characters and villains that were very poorly introduced, Ben Reilly being one of them, very poorly introduced, and with no commitment from Marvel's side. Where it's like, okay, are you going to commit to this character or not? And so you ended up with a ton of bad characters that could have been better or could have been interesting, that are just left with no support from Marvel. And if you know anything about this story, it was supposed to only last 6 months, but it actually went on for 2 years, which should probably tell you everything you need to know about it. There's a reason why this is so infamous in comics. The Clone Saga sucks. Nobody liked it. It got worse and worse as it went on, and it went on way too long. Now, before we get to number 1, I do want to look at some honorable mentions here for the most hated Marvel comics of all time. And I want to start with the Spider-Man One More Day storyline. A lot of people hold this as the worst Spider-Man comic of all time. I still think it's probably Sin's Past, but a lot of people hated One More Day. The Superior Iron Man story, a lot of people hated. It was a huge misstep for the character of Iron Man, which a lot of people already don't like, which just kind of exemplified everything wrong with the character, so that was a pretty big misstep. And then lastly, this is kind of me personally, I really hated the Shadowland storyline and all the tie-ins, which I thought was going to be cool because I'm a big Daredevil fan. That comic sucked, and all those tie-ins sucked, and I really did not like it, and it really let me down. I know that one's not quite as popular, but the Shadowland really let me down. With all that out of the way, though, let's get to number 1, the most hated Marvel comic of all time. Has to be the event Secret Empire. Secret Empire. People hate this comic for a good reason. And I remember when this came out, it was like 2017 when this comic came out. And I remember I wasn't even plugged into like online comic book stuff or YouTube comic book stuff. But even I was hearing about how terrible this was, how mishandled it was, what a bad idea it is. And I was like, what's the big deal with Secret Empire? So I made the 45-minute drive to my nearest comic book store, and I picked up issue 0. And I'm not gonna lie and say that I was like, oh, this is garbage, I hate it. But I was definitely confused, and I was kind of like, what am I reading? What am I missing here? But Secret Empire, where to even start? I guess the main thing here is that this comic completely ruined the character of Captain America. This is the comic where that meme of Captain America saying Hail Hydra comes from, because the idea of this comic is that history has been changed with a cosmic cube and has been rewritten, and that Captain America has actually been a Hydra agent this entire time. The whole time, Captain America has been evil. What a shock. How original of an idea. Yeah, it's so fucking stupid of a comic that they put out. And I don't know, did they not expect that it would be controversial, that it would be hated? I'm guessing they did and they put it out anyway. Maybe they didn't, because maybe they're so far removed from the actual readers, they thought that was a good idea. And a lot of people pointed to it as being like yet another in the list of like, here's a standard Marvel comic character, one of the originals, a straight white guy, who's actually evil and bad. It's like, look, can we not just have one character? Especially with Captain America, who is sort of the moral compass of the Marvel Universe. That's like if Superman was secretly evil this whole time, working for Darkseid. Like, that'd be so stupid. And that's pretty much what they did here with Captain America. And it's just another, not only with like whatever political aspect you would draw from that, of the guy who symbolizes America and goodness being a Nazi, but it's such a lazy writing trope. It's a bad writing trope. Okay, it's not just lazy. The writer is bad at writing. It's such a terrible yet distinctly modern view of not just comics but everything. The idea of like subverting your expectations, and the good thing is really the bad thing. And a big example of that, I think, is like Star Wars, their most recent Star Wars trilogy, where like Luke, who's good, is actually bad. And that type of thing is just so tedious and so stupid. And a lot of people will blame like Watchmen for poisoning that well and sort of starting that look of like, what if heroes were really bad guys? What if bad guys had a good point? And we've just been doing that nonstop since. But especially today, it's like the whole subverting expectations is so stupid and played out. And it's just downright insulting. Insulting to my intelligence as a reader, but also to myself as a reader of comic books. Like, how stupid. I don't even know what more to say. How stupid of a decision was that? And they'll claim, well, they made up for it, right? Because Captain America, the goodness of Captain America came from the Cosmic Cube and defeated the bad guy. It's like, yeah, but the bad guy is the real Captain America. That's the real one from the 40s up until now. That's him. This Cosmic Cube baby, whatever it is, Captain America, that's not our guy. That's someone completely different. And our guy has just been completely character assassinated. And I hate that panel. The panel where like the Cosmic Cube, the good Captain America, beats the bad one, and he picks up Mjolnir and smacks him, and the bad Captain America is making the soy face as he gets launched into the air. I hate that panel so much. So cringe. It was a terrible comic. And beyond just like the actual theme plot of the comic, like, it's just not very well written. It's not interesting. The art, I think, was fine from what I remember. I don't remember hating the art, but it's like just not a good story. All around, not a good story. And instead, it seems quite indicative of the attitude that the creators at Marvel have for their characters and for their fan base, which I really did not appreciate. And many others did not as well. But hey, that's just my list of the top 5 most hated Marvel comics of all time. Let me know what you think. What did I miss? What do you think is the most hated comic of all time from Marvel? Put that in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.